Hello everyone, and welcome back to Living Wisdom and Dharma World. Today's topic carries great depth, great beauty, and also great humility. We're not just talking about a historical master, nor merely a modern child said to remember a former life. We are speaking about something much subtler: how awakened activity moves through time, how realization does not belong to one body, and how vows echo far beyond a single lifetime. Today, we will explore who Vairochana truly was, what kind of practitioner he was, his intimate relationship with Guru Padmasambhava, how Dzogchen entered Tibet through living beings rather than texts, and why more than 1,000 years later, a small Bhutanese prince may be connected to this ancient stream of realization. As always, I invite you not to listen with blind belief, nor with rigid doubt, but with the openness the Dharma itself encourages. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to inspire others on their path of discovery. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your reflections may spark meaningful conversations and mutual growth. Together, let's start our exploration. Vairochana, more than a translator. When people first hear the name Vairochana, they often think of him simply as a translator of scriptures. That sounds almost academic, even modest. But in Tibetan Buddhism, calling someone a translator is misleading if we think in modern terms. Vairochana was not someone converting words from one language to another. He was someone who translated realization into living transmission. Born in 8th century Tibet during the reign of King Trisong Detsen, Vairochana belonged to a generation tasked with nothing less than transforming Tibet from a land of ritual and shamanic traditions into a civilization grounded in the Dharma. From a young age, he showed an extraordinary aptitude for languages, memory, and most importantly, meditative absorption. Even historical chronicles note that Vairochana's mind was unusually still, precise, and penetrating. This is not incidental. In Buddhism, linguistic genius without realization is considered dangerous because it distorts meaning. True translators had to realize the teachings inwardly before expressing them outwardly. This is why Vairochana was entrusted with the most subtle transmissions. Meeting Guru Padmasambhava, a meeting of mind streams. To understand Vairochana, we must understand his relationship with Guru Padmasambhava, also known as Guru Rinpoche. Guru Padmasambhava was not merely a teacher who arrived in Tibet. He was a force of awakening. His role was not to explain Buddhism intellectually, but to tame karmic conditions, pacify obstacles, and plant realization deep into the land and its people. Vairochana was among the disciples who did not merely revere Guru Rinpoche, but resonated with him. In Tibetan tradition, this resonance is described as a meeting of mind streams. It means the student does not merely listen, but recognizes something already familiar. This is why Guru Padmasambhava entrusted Vairochana with Dzogchen teachings, the most direct and radical path in Tibetan Buddhism. Dzogchen is not a method one masters. It is a recognition of what has never been absent. Dzogchen and Vairochana's realization. Dzogchen, often translated as great perfection, does not rely primarily on gradual purification. It points directly to the nature of mind, empty, luminous, and spontaneously present. To receive Dzogchen, a practitioner must already possess immense stability, ethical purity, and fearless insight. Otherwise, the teachings become philosophy rather than liberation. Vairochana was among the very few Tibetans of his time who received Dzogchen directly from Guru Padmasambhava and his consort Yeshtogyal. What did this mean in practice? It meant that Vairochana did not simply memorize texts. He abided in Rigpa, the non-dual awareness beyond grasping. His meditation was not fabricated. His conduct was effortless. His compassion arose naturally, not as moral effort, but as spontaneous responsiveness. Later traditions would describe him as someone who had realized the inseparability of emptiness and appearance. This realization is critical because it explains everything that followed, including persecution. Why realized masters are often persecuted. One of the most misunderstood aspects of Buddhist history is why figures like Vairochana were so often opposed. If someone teaches compassion and wisdom, why would they be exiled, tortured, and slandered? The Dharma gives a very clear answer. Realization threatens ego structures, both personal and institutional. Vairochana returned from India carrying profound teachings, new translations, and living insight. But not everyone wanted change. Religious authorities feared loss of control. Political figures feared destabilization. Indigenous traditions felt challenged. So accusations were fabricated. Vairochana was exiled to remote regions, imprisoned, humiliated, and subjected to severe physical and psychological torture. Historical and oral accounts describe attempts to break his will through fear and degradation. And yet, this is crucial, there is no record of resentment, rebellion, or despair. Why? Because from the Dzogchen view, suffering does not negate realization, it reveals it. Practice in exile. When the cave becomes the mandala. In exile, Vairochana did not demand justice. He practiced. Caves became his monasteries. Silence became his teaching. His own body became the field of realization. Stories describe him meditating in conditions meant to destroy the human spirit. And yet, his mind remained unmovable. According to oral tradition, even the local rulers who persecuted him eventually experienced profound remorse after witnessing his equanimity. This is a key Dharma point. True realization does not announce itself. It converts enemies without argument. Eventually, those who had imprisoned him became his protectors. They supported his translation work and allowed him to transmit teachings. This is how Buddhism spread in many remote regions of Tibet, not through power, but through unshakable presence. Translation as enlightened activity. When Vairochana translated texts, he was not merely preserving words. He was encoding realization. That is why many of his translations feel unusually clear, direct, and alive. Some scholars have even noted that certain Dzogchen passages attributed to him seem less like doctrinal writing and more like spoken pointing out instructions. In Tibetan tradition, this is not accidental. It is believed that Vairochana translated not from conceptual mind, but from direct recognition. This is why he later came to be remembered as one who lit the lamp of the East, not because he was loud, but because he was precise. Reincarnation in the Buddhist sense. Now we come to a delicate topic. Reincarnation. In Buddhism, rebirth is not the return of a personality. It is the continuation of karmic momentum and vows. What moves forward is not a soul, but a tendency shaped by intention and realization. Highly realized practitioners are said to be capable of choosing rebirth consciously, not out of ignorance, but out of compassion. This is why Tibetans do not ask, "Who is reborn?" They ask, "What vow has returned?" The Bhutanese Little Prince, continuity, not curiosity. When we hear about the Bhutanese Little Prince, Ngong Jigme Jigten Wangchuk, it is easy to focus on the astonishing aspects: spontaneous mutters, recognition of sacred sites, emotional responses to caves and statues. But from the Dharma perspective, the most important detail is often overlooked. The child does not display pride. He does not seek recognition. His words repeatedly return to peace, purification, and compassion. This matches the trajectory of Vairochana's life precisely. If this is indeed a rebirth connected to Vairochana, then what has returned is not status, but an unfinished, compassionate activity. Even the child's tears when prevented from visiting certain caves are telling. These were not tantrums. They were expressions of long-standing connection to practice. In Buddhism, places of deep realization are not locations. They are mirrors. Why this story matters to us. At this point, some listeners may wonder, what does this have to do with my life? Everything. Whether or not one believes in rebirth, the story of Vairochana asks us a fundamental question. What are we cultivating so deeply that it might outlast this body? Are we reinforcing fear, resentment, and distraction? Or are we cultivating clarity, compassion, and wisdom? The Dharma tells us that nothing sincere is ever lost. Closing. Vairochana's life teaches us that realization is not validated by comfort, applause, or safety. It is validated by how one remains open under suffering, steady under misunderstanding, and compassionate under attack. If the Bhutanese little prince truly carries this stream, then what we are witnessing is not a miracle, but a reminder that awakening does not belong to history. It walks quietly among us. Sometimes it even arrives with the small hands of a child. Thank you for spending this time with Living Wisdom and Dharma World. If you found this teaching helpful, please like, subscribe, and share so others can benefit from the Dharma. Feel free to share your reflections in the comments below. May we all live in such a way that, whether or not we remember our past lives, our future, near or distant, will be shaped by wisdom and compassion.